can go ahead and get started since it is the top of the hour. So welcome everybody to the Medicare Cafe. You're joined always by your hosts. My name is Olivia Richardson.
And I'm Carrie Vogt.
So this is actually a conversation that me and Carrie have actually had several times actually throughout the last few episodes, and it keeps kind of coming back to this point. Everything, I think, like, in my opinion, what can set the tone, what can set the mood, literally what makes a good appointment is everything you do before the appointment actually starts.
Absolutely. It starts way before the actual appointment.
Do you have any weird like rituals? We'll talk about like, because a lot of this actually
Yes.
came from your pre-appointment scheduling, but do you have anything that's like more ritual or like things that really don't make sense that you still do?
Well, so every Monday, I sit down and look at all my appointments that I have for the week and I prep them kind of all at once. And I write down everyone and I figure out what information I know about them, what information I don't. And sometimes, like for instance, this week I have a meeting at a financial planner's office on Thursday. I'll reach out to him and I'll say, hey, are we still on for our meeting this Thursday? Just to make sure, when there's a third party scheduling.
Right.
Or if, my assistant scheduled a meeting, I'll look at an appointment I have coming up. I'm like, I don't even remember who that is or talking to them. So then I have to like reach out to my assistant and figure out what information there is or look in my CRM for notes. So I do all of that on Monday to give me plenty of time to prep and figure out if there's something else I need to get.
I like that. So, because I've always been, again, this is not the topic for today, but I think it brings up a thought of like, I've always been in the impression of like, it takes so many different types of mindsets to do what an insurance agent does, because you have business management, you have marketing, you have networking, and you actually have the appointments, makes you money. So do you divide your week up by like my Mondays and Wednesdays are my marketing days? I have appointments on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Or do you kind of like block off your week by days, or do you just take it as it comes?
I had great intentions of doing that, of having like, all right, I'm going to have my meetings Wednesday, Thursday, or whatever it is. But the reality is, not all your clients are going to be able to meet on those 2 days. So I say I try to stick to meetings Monday, Wednesday, Thursdays, like client meetings. But yeah, if somebody's just like, hey, I still work and I only have Fridays off, then I'm going to do what I can to make a Friday work. So I try that, but I would also be limiting myself if I really stuck to that.
So, and I also know, again, you have 2 young kids and a husband that you don't get to see during the week. So do you do appointments on Saturdays if somebody says I really can only meet Saturdays, or do you have hard boundaries on your weekends?
Um, Typically at the end of the month, I'm always meeting with somebody on a weekend.
Okay. Just because they have to
I
get an
don't
effective
like
date the next
to, but
day.
yeah, if we're like crunched on a deadline, then absolutely, I'll meet on the weekend. But I don't every weekend work, but I will if I need to. Do you feel like most other agents do work on the weekend? Is
I
that
think
like
it just depends. I think
maybe
it
starting
depends.
out?
I think early in careers I see a lot of weekends, but whenever an agent has more of that power, I think it's kind of that same thing of being
Right.
like, no, you have to work on my schedule because I have a full schedule, make sure. But I think more hungry, the less boundaries you set. Not necessarily saying that's right, but I think that's what I see. Way off topic, but I still think really good content
Still
that
kind
I'm
of
just
on
like, wait a
topic.
second, this
We're
is a
still
great
prepping for
question.
appointments.
So first step is in that initial conversation is I mean, this is everything you do before you sit down and meet with that person. So I always say like we do an 8-step selling process, and the door opener in my opinion is really kind of setting the how did you get their information. It's kind of did they turn in a lead card, did they see you at an event or a seminar, how did you get in front of that person. And so you said in that initial conversation, like the appointment setting, you try to get this information before you even sit down and talk to an individual. So before the appointment even starts, you try to get this context.
When we talk about a few weeks ago, keeping appointments to like not being there for 2 hours, I feel like doing this right here will keep your appointments to under an hour if you do the prep beforehand and get these things. You know, someone shows up and they take 30 prescriptions and you're entering them in your appointment, you could have done that way before and then been ready to go with all their drugs in your system. And also have an idea of quotes for a med sup or
Mhm.
whatever it is based on their date of birth and where they live, and what providers. You could already check what, popular plans in your area if their providers are a network. So I think this is huge in my opinion.
Do you find that clients, especially ones that like maybe, and I can understand this for like a follow-up, not a follow-up, but like a returning client, because you already have that relationship, they already kind of know how that works. For somebody who's brand new to you, do you find that people are hesitant to give you this information, or do they just kind of like, ah, it's part of the drill, I know you need it?
I don't think they're, I mean, there's going to be some people that are hesitant to give you any personal information until they
Mhm.
really trust you. But I would say the majority of people, my initial phone conversation with them, they're trying to, they're doing too much over the phone, honestly, in my opinion. Like they're already trying to get into the different pieces of Medicare and telling me all this stuff they're getting in the mail. I'm like, I promise I'll go over everything in person. Like I think it'll help, if we have visuals. So I just try to get the bare minimum. Um, and like you said, really find out how they got your name. So
Mhm.
that way I'm big on tracking, especially if you're working on a referral basis. I think that's really important, or to know if your mailers are working.
Mhm. How long is that initial conversation for you usually?
I'd say anywhere from 5 minutes to 30 minutes.
Just kind of
30
if they're
minutes on the
wanting.
long end.
Sure, that makes sense. And then I like what you had here is like finding out like what relationships. I know like because for me, you and I do the warm up process very differently. Your warm up process is much more personable. It's much more getting to know them, their families, kind of trying to build that relationship off the bat. So how do you gather that personal information? Because my warm up is very much less warm, I think, and it's much more, here's the expectations for the appointment, here's what you can expect. I spend much less time on that than you do. So what are you looking for when you mentioned I'm trying to find stuff to talk to them in my own warm-up process? What relationship stuff are you asking?
My number one go-to question is, most of these people are retiring. So
Mhm.
I'll say, are you retiring soon? And that, people are pumped to retire, most of
Sure.
them.
Yeah.
And I feel like that just opens the can of worms about, they'll tell you when they're retiring, which, mental note, that's when they need their Medicare to start.
Sure.
So that just opens up a couple avenues of the personal side. They'll start telling you where they worked, where they're retiring from, what they're maybe doing. And then it'll also give you an idea of when you need their Medicare to start and how quickly you need to meet with them and get the ball rolling. So, are you retiring is pretty much my go-to question.
That's actually super helpful because it's so easy and it seems so personable, but you get almost everything you need from that one
Right,
question.
right.
So that's the initial conversation. Let's move into, again, once that initial conversation is taken care of, the appointment is set, they know when they need to be in your office or you need to be in their home. This is where I say you start kind of crunching the numbers. You're entering in their drug list on Medicare Center. So you're trying to see if they go the Part D route, what Part D is probably going to be they want to go with. What MA plan would they if they go the MA route, what MA plan are they likely to go with? If they go, get some idea Medicare supplement quotes. What's going to be price competitive? Can they underwrite for any of that? And I think something that most agents don't do, and I loved, Carrie, when you and I talked about it, you made this very clear that making sure that you start looking at your ancillary quotes so you can give some ballpark estimates in your fact finding and in your education process so that you kind of know, you can kind of give an idea what an ancillary product would cost for them.
Absolutely. And I think doing this ahead of time will also do some kind of like double checking for you. Like, I can't tell you how many times somebody's given me their drug lists
Mm-hmm.
and I run them in, we come for the appointment, and I'll say, oh, I had a question about, was this one a tablet or a capsule? Like that small difference can
Because
be
that makes
huge
a
as far as
difference.
numbers go. So it can almost be a good way to like double check that you haven't missed anything.
Mm-hmm.
Or I'll read their drug list back to them at the appointment. I'm like, so you said you take this, this, and this, anything else? And they're like, oh, yeah, I didn't give you this. So I think drugs specifically, getting those beforehand is huge.
Do you I know a lot of agents will actually have them bring in their prescriptions into the appointment, like physically bring in their pills to the appointment. Do you find that helpful, or do you find people would be hesitant to do that?
I've never asked about bringing in their pills. If I've been in somebody's house, yeah, they go to their medicine cabinet and get their whole pill box out. A lot of times what I'll do is if I know people have it, or if they say they take a lot, is I'm just like line them up and take a picture of it. That's less, you know,
Mhm.
taxing for them. Um, or some people just like print out from their pharmacy, or some people just handwrite them. But a lot of times just asking them to take a picture of it, I feel like saves them time and effort.
And then don't forget too, on Medicare Center, they actually have the blue button capability to where that if they do have a
You
My
need to
Medicare.
show me that.
Yes, I'm telling
That's,
you, I know Clint uses that.
yeah,
Again, the vice president of senior benefit services, he uses it, and it is a huge game changer, especially if you have clients that do take like 30 prescriptions. If they use the blue button capability, they literally just sync it up and it automatically uploads all their
that's
medication.
awesome.
Yeah. So again, you crunch the numbers. Now, this was something I thought very interesting. What if you don't get all the information? What if, your assistant is setting the appointment for you? Maybe they aren't the easiest to reach. Maybe they aren't responding to your emails as much. So how do you do that appointment, or how do you even prep for that appointment if you don't have that details?
I write it all down what I need. So
Mhm.
I literally have a notepad or my fancy little iPad now, thanks to you. And I make a list. I'm like, I write their name at the top, and I'm like, okay, I don't have their date of birth. I write DOB, and so I know to get that. I write socials, blah, 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 whatever it is that I need, I write it down so that way I know I'm not forgetting something. Um, I write it I write it down, but I'm the type of person, if I don't write it down, it doesn't happen. So I don't know if
Same.
everybody's like that, but I think the better organized you are going into the appointment, that way you're also not like fumbling around like, what else do I need?
Yeah.
Like if you're prepared, like I just feel like the sale's going to happen better.
I work with a lot of agents that have the fact finding forms. So I know your fact finding, Carrie, is a little different. You have what they call the house, the four pillars of the house, the different rooms in the house, that helps you fact find and cross it, which is really interesting. We actually have a video on what do you guys call it? It's not the pathways, but the house,
Um, the that's
the
terrible.
four circles.
4 circles,
Yes,
yes.
there's the
You
four
kept taking
circles. We do have a
notes.
video. We do have a video on how to utilize the four circles method, but I do work with a lot of agents that will have the fact finding form, and the fact
Okay.
finding form, they run it like a doctor's office. Everybody, doesn't matter how many times you've been in that office, you fill out that fact
Fill
finding
it
form
out.
every single time. And if
So
they
like
don't
the
have that
agent fills them
information,
out in front of it, or they give it to them.
they give it to the client. If they have like a waiting room, they'll give it to the client to fill
Oh,
out in
that's
the waiting
awesome.
room. If they don't, then they'll fill it out together at the beginning of that appointment, but they'll highlight on their things of information that they need, information that they don't have, to draw more attention to it. And
That's
that way,
awesome.
if you have a consistent form that you use, then this is the content that I need every single time.
I 100%, if I had the capabilities of doing that, would do that.
So we actually have that CYA form. I think I talk about
Yeah,
it on the next page, is getting your forms together. It's
for
a
sure.
Medicare supplement and Medicare Advantage review form, but it kind of works that way. If you're going to write a Medicare supplement, it lets you know, here's all the things that you need to know before you write that med sup. Same
Mhm.
thing with the Medicare Advantage. It gets like their medications, their providers, their specialists, data, all that stuff. And so we have that on our website, but it is kind of a nice little, making sure like it helps kind of guide you through a compliant presentation, but more so makes you know like this is what you need to do these appointments.
I love that. Yeah, love it.
So
I wish
anyways,
I could do that.
yeah. So again, like we talked about, kind of getting your forms together. That's right before the appointment, making sure that you know what your appointment process is going to be, making sure you have your fact finding forms, the covet your assets, aka the Medicare review forms that I just talked about, the pathways form. Again, we do have a recorded version of that on our university. Of kind of is actually Clint doing a Medicare supplement presentation in just 20 minutes, which is really interesting. And
Hmm.
then explain to me, Carrie, because you're the one that mentioned this, but your post-appointment / send-off forms. What do you leave with a client when the appointment's done?
So I think I mentioned I use like the pathways sheet in the Medicare new book. I kind of made my own.
Mm-hmm.
And that is really the main document that I send with them because it's got our numbers written down on there that we talked about.
Mm-hmm.
Any like action items, I'll write that on there
Mm-hmm.
for them to do. I'll write that on there and I'll clip my card on there. Um, if they want to think about dental, I'll send them with the dental brochure. And actually, as you were talking, this made me think of I probably should do better at like sending them, putting all this in an actual like folder. Like that would be
Mm-hmm.
way more professional. Do you
Mm-hmm.
feel like most agents have an actual like branded folder that they send home with all of their clients?
You know what? Most of them don't. Most of them
No.
don't. I just really became like Canadian there for a second. A lot of them don't. Bernadette says she uses a folder, but I love the folder idea because it does a couple things. One is you tell somebody this is your I'll say this. There's two kind of folders that I like. Just the traditional folder that's branded. Lisa says that she does use one too. Branded has your contact information, everything. First of all, it's brand consistency. It's building
Right.
brand awareness. But what I love is that you tell a person, hey, any questions that you get, here's a notepad. Any
Mhm.
questions that you get, write it down in this notepad, put it in this folder, and bring this folder to every appointment that we go on. Any advertising, any mailers that you get, any Medicare question, any Medicare or Social Security mailers that you get, put them in this. Call me. We'll go through it at your next appointment. But I love
That
that
would
because it stops them from seeing other people's advertisement, and it really does solidify that, like, why do I need to call a 1-800 number? I'm going to go see Carrie here in a few months or here during AEP. I'll just put this in here for safekeeping, out of sight, out of mind. I'll bring that folder with me next time. So I love that. We
right.
also have an agent that we worked with that had one of the accordion files, like the ones like
Oh
open up
yeah.
and there's like all the dividers. So they
Yes.
had an accordion file, and every single folder had a different product line. So they would have like your nursing home insurance, your cancer insurance, your recovery insurance, your major medical, and your prescription. And they would be, every time he goes, you bring me this folder every single time. And so every time they looked at that folder, it was a reminder of the insurance that they didn't have. It was literal holes. And so it did all the cross selling for him, because they would say, well, do I need something to fill this? And that would be kind of his way of like, we can talk about all these product lines. Today we're talking about these 3 folders. Next time we'll make sure to talk about these other 2.
That's awesome. And as you were saying that, it made me think of what a good task for delegating to an assistant or an admin person, getting all
Mm-hmm.
those ready.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I love that. And that you also, the folder, um, the accordion folder made me think about last week. Just something that's I thought was awesome about one of the like relationships that I've built so much with a financial advisor. They
Mm-hmm.
have a big folder that they give to all of their clients, and they now have a Medicare section with my information in there. How
That's
awesome is that?
that is
That
so awesome.
is, I just wanted to share that. Not to toot
Yeah.
my own horn, but just to think of how good, if you guys aren't using financial advisors as a
Mm-hmm.
referral source, I mean, they really love having a Medicare expert. That was
Mm-hmm.
on a tangent.
Yeah. No, and the thing is like, what I love that you don't do with these partners is that you're not like hey, refer them to me and I'll give you $25 per referral. It's not like you're paying for them. They genuinely see you as an extension of their office, and they're setting the appointments because they know a lot of financial planners are getting into this industry. And so it's much easier if they don't want to do the Medicare stuff themselves. If they go to somewhere else, it's very possible that that financial planner who's doing, or that Medicare agent, is also a financial planner. So to
Right.
kind of protect your house, make sure that you have referral partners that aren't going to take the business. And again, I know that's something that always really impresses me with your relationships, is that they actually set the appointments for you. Like, you have free appointment setters who are financial planners.
They don't happen overnight. You still gotta, I guess I could just door knock financial advisors too. I was gonna say I don't door knock, but I could
Could
door
just
knock.
show up in
Yeah,
their office with donuts.
right.
We literally just had that today. Somebody showed up and was like, I want to be your friend. Here's donuts. I'm like, cool,
Oh
thanks.
man, love it.
I will be anybody's friend for a donut. I am not cheap. Nope, I'm not free, but I'm definitely cheap. And then Bernadette says, you can also, I always send off a folder, and I give thank you cards and a small gift. I love that.
Oh,
Jamie
that's
says,
awesome.
our office says, I send a sheet of everything we offer and print out the plans that I offer. Beautiful. So again, I think it's really important to have those post-appointment send-off forms just to have people just refer back to, but to leave something with something tangible. People will actually hold on to those. And the last thing I have on here is actually discussion, Carrie, that you and I talked about. So we talked about this last time we were able to sit down and discuss. But I know work with a lot of agents, especially agents who are starting out newer in the industry, and they do the 2 appointments. So they'll actually sit down and not do like a phone call and appointment, but they will do 2 appointments, one to fact find, one to gather information, and then they'll go home and they'll go back to their office, run the quotes, run the information, call senior marketing specialists for help, and then they'll have a second appointment to collect the application and to, to help the client
Right.
actually decide to actually, like, they will present the plans and then collect the applications in the same go. What are your thoughts on that? I know you kind of do a one, but you do a one appointment if you can get a lot of information in that initial phone call.
Right. I would say I pretty much do a two appointment close where the first one is primarily either on the phone and then the second meeting is in person signing, or it's the opposite. The first meeting is I educate, go over all the information, tab the action items, and then the close is actually done electronically or over the phone. So it really
Mhm.
just kind of depends, but sometimes I would say the majority of mine are 2 appointments. One thing I will also say that I feel like, and I still do, but when I was starting out, as far as the 2 appointments go, um, I had several clients actually tell me that they really appreciated this. Is I would have one appointment where I would, explain everything. And if they were, 2 months out from their start date, I would tell them like, and maybe I shouldn't be recommending this, but just the feedback I got was I would say, you don't have to make a decision right now.
Mhm.
Think about this. Don't feel like you have to make a rash decision because I'm here. Like I can come back, we can have another meeting. And I know not everybody would say that, but I had multiple people tell me, thank you for being patient. Not everybody, I've had people that have been just pushy sales, and I appreciate you letting me like think about things. So if you can kind of, I feel like read the person that like they're not ready to make a decision, I feel like saying that sometimes and having a second appointment might help you actually close the sale.
I find that so interesting because the way that I was trained on sales and all of
I
like
know
the
that's
sales
probably
talk,
not how most people are trained on
that's
sales.
straight up. They say it's actually a super negative
No.
thing, like not ask for the close. But I'm telling you this, like I love what the industry, what really, in my opinion, what great insurance agents have done to the industry has made it gone from I'm selling you insurance to I'm advising you
Yeah.
on what you should be doing for your health care. And I feel like what you're saying is much more of that advisor role. As my job is here to advise you, it's ultimately your decision. How do you feel comfortable making that decision? I think that works well. And I'll tell you where agents who try to do what you do but fail at it. And it's because they don't tell the person what's next. It's
Yeah.
here's everything,
Definitely have
here's all the
have a good follow up like action items for both you and them.
yes, because what will happen is if you don't have a strong call to action, if you don't have a this is what your next steps are, then what you've done, you left somebody a ton of information, taken a ton of time of your own time, and then allowed them to be like, okay, I'm ready to enroll. I guess I'll call Joe Namath, or I guess I'll call 1-800-Medicare, because you weren't very clear about what the next steps were. You didn't really set clearly the next expectation. So I can really respect. It goes against every old
I know it
school
does.
it goes to go every old school sales technique. But again, I think it's because you don't have the mindset of I'm selling. You have the I'm advising, and because I'm providing you a service and you know how I help you, you're going to come back and use my services. So I
And
think that's like,
the
great.
clients that I'm remembering that specifically said that they appreciated that, I remember they were ones that left a retiree plan, and it was,
Mhm.
once you leave a retiree plan, you can't get back on it. So they like
Right.
really needed to let that marinate. Um, so and I feel like, if you've been doing this or if you haven't been doing it long enough, like you can tell when a person's hesitant. Like, don't just say it from the get-go. Definitely not recommending that, but read the room.
Sure. And I think too, we have to understand that we're actually advising people on their health care. We're not selling a
Right.
car, we're not selling a house, we're not selling clothes. We're literally selling how somebody receives health care. So it's going to be understandable if they need some time to really think about it, especially when it's like, do I leave something I know and I understand to join Medicare, which is confusing, or do I take your advice, or do I stay where I'm at, that conversation. Bernadette says, I do the same thing as Carrie because the client feels like you have their best interest in mind. So again,
Exactly.
love that two-step, love that let's get back together, let you sleep on it, let you think on it, but you have to, I
You
think,
have to follow up for
how
sure.
many people do you say you get the sale because you follow up versus you get the sale because they reach back out to you?
Probably 75% of me reaching out to them.
So like you would think
People
that like if
forget,
you,
people are busy,
Mhm.
like it's not on the forefront of their mind. And I typically tell them, like, if I let somebody think on it, I'll say, I'll wait till I hear from you, but if I haven't heard from you in a week, I'll reach back out. That's typically what I say.
I love that because then like, things get busy and it's not a fun discussion to talk about insurance. So they probably aren't going to call you because that's not a
Right.
fun conversation. But when you call them, you're not a pushy salesperson. You're just keeping your promises. You
Yep.
told them you're
And I
going to
think
call
a
them in a
week
week
is
and you
plenty long,
did.
in my opinion.
Do what?
I think a week is plenty long, in my opinion. If you wait much longer than that, like, there's
They
so many
forget
people that are
everything.
going to sneak in there. Yeah.
Mhm. And then and Eugene asked, how does all of this activity work as a virtual appointment? And Carrie, my experience, a virtual appointment is almost the complete same as a face-to-face appointment. It's all just about the delivery. You're
Yep.
using platforms like Skype or you're using a Zoom meeting and you're presenting everything the same. You're just using technology like Medicare Center allows you to text them applications. Most e-applications don't require a physical signature. You can email them something. I know it works much better if the client does have access to an email account for the most part.
And as far as the actual prep before the appointment, it takes me longer to prep a virtual appointment than an in-person appointment because, like, before just even this, I
Mhm,
minimize everything I didn't need and I pull
mhm,
up, if I'm meeting with somebody, I'll pull up my pathways sheet, I'll pull up the Medicare supplement chart, I'll pull up Medicare Center so I have their drug list ready. The last thing you want to do is let me share my screen and it takes you 10 minutes to find what you actually need.
sure.
So I think a Zoom meeting, if you're meeting virtual, there's actually more prep than in person, in my opinion, because you don't want to, have something that you don't want them to see other client information up or something when you share your screen.
The majority of your people who are opting, because I know you offer it, you say, do you want face-to-face or do you want virtual? You have either option. Do you find that people who do opt for virtual, are they technically savvy enough to handle virtual events, or do you find there's a lot of struggle there?
I have not, at the beginning of COVID, there was struggle, but gosh, I haven't had anybody struggle for a long time,
Good.
which I will always say if there's one good thing from COVID, it's this
Yeah.
capability.
Yeah. Eugene says, but you have people using smartphones instead of a computer, and they probably don't have a printer. So again, in my experience, most virtual appointments don't really require because of the way that the applications are, e-applications, the appointment process. Most don't require that your clients have a printer. I mean, I know a lot of clients would like to print it to have it to put in their folder, but they don't necessarily need the printer. Carrie,
Right.
whenever you do a virtual appointment, do you instruct them to use a laptop or desktop, or do you tell them they can use any device?
I tell them they can use any device that you'll be able to see my visuals better on a computer, but not, I mean, a lot of seniors don't have computers.
Mm-hmm.
And so typically what I'll do is I'll say, I'll see them taking notes and I'll say, just so you know, like everything we talk about, I will save and email to you.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's helpful also. That way they know they don't have to print the pathways form I'm talking about um, and I still will say, if you want to fill out the application today, do you want to fill it out with me on Zoom right here and you can see what I'm doing? Or I can fill it out and then I'll email it to you just like a regular e-app. And you
Mm-hmm.
can like review it slowly on your own time and read the fine print. So I still give them those options.
I like that. Giving them options because it's in my experience, my opinion, it has everything to do with how the client wants to buy. The client's going to buy the way they want to buy. It's your
For sure.
responsibility to be able to sell the way that they want to buy.
I think you said most agents do one longer appointment, right?
I would say not
Majority?
necessarily most, but I would say in my experience, most, yeah, I guess I would say most of the agents that I work with do just
They
one
just do
longer
one.
appointment. They'll try to get their admin, or they'll try to get the same information we talked about in the beginning. My most successful agents will get most of that information in the appointment setting process. But other than that, if they say it just becomes, especially more experienced agents, it just becomes second nature to them. It's just habits, it's muscle memory. As
Right.
they're talking with their clients and presenting Medicare ideas or presenting solutions, they're typing in the information to Medicare Center. They're typing in it, and they'll actually show the client, okay, here we'll go ahead and talk about a MedSup versus a Medicare Advantage. Once you decide which option you like better, which pathway you choose, then we're going to go ahead and shop for those together. And I'll show you my screen, and you can see me typing in your information to see what MedSups are available, or you're seeing me type in your zip code for the Medicare Advantage plans. So they make the, instead of doing all that legwork up front, they'll make the client a part of that process so they can kind of see something that I think that does really well is, and I actually was listening to a Human Connection podcast with Joanne Ray. She was talking to actually one of our top Missouri producers. His name's Gordon Brown. Something that I found extremely interesting was he said, like, a lot of people focus on what the MedSup is, like what you know what a MedSup is, and you should be on a MedSup because this is what a MedSup is. He says, but they don't talk about why. So when you include somebody in that shopping process, you really get to explain or along that process why a Medicare supplement is a great option, why a Medicare Advantage may make more sense for that client, why
Hmm.
you have to find out the providers. And he says, my clients who understand why do not switch without talking to me because they truly are
Yeah,
sold on it versus just following my advice.
right. And again, that goes back to the like advising.
Mm-hmm.
They're advising and
Exactly.
looking out for the best interest as opposed to just selling.
Exactly. Perfect. So that is actually what Carrie and I have today, talking about what to do prior to your appointment. A lot of great stuff on there as well. And again, I think it's really interesting, Carrie. I think it kind of goes against everything that I thought about. It takes longer to prep for a virtual appointment than it does a face-to-face one. But that makes sense because you do
And
kind of
maybe
have to be
that's
more in your
because I
game.
have like 12 browsers open all the time.
Same. Same, always, always. I get confused. And then like I saw something and it was like my brain is like no, it's like my brain is like my internet browsers. I have 12 tabs going at all times and I can't figure out which one's playing music.
Yes,
That's
perfect.
genuinely my life. So reminder guys, today, this Tuesday is the last Medicare Cafe that will be on the GoToWebinar platform. So next week, if you try to log on to GoToWebinar to watch Medicare Cafe, we will not be here. Instead, at Tuesday at 10 a.m., we will be on YouTube doing a YouTube
Yay.
live series. So we will be setting up ways for you guys to be able to comment and communicate. If you have a YouTube channel or a YouTube account, you'll be able to comment as always. Brian, some of your contacts will be public. However, we will be adding a private message as well. So will be having a text option in order to allow you guys to comment if you do want to be a little bit more anonymous with your comments. So we will have a text option as well. So that again, that'll be on Tuesday. In order to be able to access and get reminders or be told when we go live, go to youtube.com, search Medicare Cafe, and subscribe and turn on notifications. That way, every time we post a video or every time we go live, you will be notified. Also, check your email. We will be emailing out links and then reminders for you guys to make sure you join us every Tuesday at 10. And
Thanks for
again,
joining us today, guys.
yeah, looking. Thank you, Mike and Angie. Good to see you again. How do we get onto it? Just go. It should be easier. I will say, guys, it'll be a change, and nobody likes change, but it'll be easier for you all to access the YouTube platform, especially if you're driving or in between appointments. GoToWebinar is a very clunky system. I'm gonna say that, and then something's gonna happen. Again, getting on today on GoToWebinar was a nightmare. So it's a very clunky system. So hopefully this will be easier, but always looking for feedback and things like that. So any other questions, comments, concerns, threats, or promises, guys, let us know. Join us on Medicare Cafe's Facebook page. Make sure you're watching What's Brewing. And Eugene said, sounds good, but I had to take a phone call. So yes, all of these are being recorded. They will be on that YouTube page. All of these recordings are on the Medicare Cafe YouTube page as well. So everything will be stored in one place, nice and easy. Alrighty, so Carrie, how are we doing this? I say have fun, you say make money,
Make money. That's
and then
right.
we do give impeccable service together. We'll figure this out. It's gonna be interesting being remote.
We'll figure it out by next week.
We'll have to. All right, guys, so until next time, have fun.
Make money.
And give impeccable service.
Service.
Nailed it.
Woo!
Thanks, guys.